The following program is proudly brought to you by Micro Projects, a unit under the Ministry of Economic Planning and Development, in conjunction with the Ministry of Tinkundla and Administration.
Mbukeli ngiphinze ngikwemukele ehlelweni Sive Siyatfutfuka lokuvusela konguye nokwazi iphumelele wakadlamini. Mbukeli namhla ehlelweni sitakulethela sicephu sekugcina sawo umhlangano lomkhulu kakhulu webaholi bemdzabu bakhona eAfrika. Sitawukuva ukuthi baholi bemdzabu bazuze ini kuwo lo mhlangano. Sitawuphinze futhi sikulethele lokunye lokuhle njengoba imbubo yemhlaba yabamema abaholi bemdzabu ukuthi bangenele i-International Trade Fair kanye futhi nawo umkhosi wemhlanga. Asingene ehlelweni Mbukeli ngethembe ukuthi utalithokotela kakhulu.
So these are the things we want to achieve, because we are trying to say what we want to achieve during the, theme 2025. So one of them is to integrate reparations in what we are doing. Secondly is to build continental solidarity and diaspora engagement. Because for you to take, every country every single African country lost people to slavery. We assume it was only the eastern coast, it was only the western coast. The roots of slavery went deep and they were vast. And people were mined from the whole continent, including North Africa. And we know this. So it is very important to have continental solidarity so that this project can succeed. We also have to promote historical education and cultural revival. Our children do not even know colonization history. They are being now taught nonsense in schools. When you look at some of the curriculums, I'm sure, I haven't been doing homework for almost 20 years because my children graduated a long time ago. But when they were doing their homework, and I looked at their homework, and I saw the kind of things they were learning, they were completely out of context.
His Majesty King Mswati has accepted to be our mouthpiece in the AU, given that he's doubling as the king and also a head of state who has a permanent chair in the OAU, in the AU. I think it is a very, very good move. As all of you are aware that it is only culture which can bring Africa back together. And this is the move, and this is the journey we have started today. Because we have had a lot of challenges in Africa because we are not pulling together. But I would like to thank the convener, who is the chairperson of the indigenous traditional leaders, to have shared with His Excellency and the commissioner in charge of human rights, Dr. Lita, in coming up with this idea of bringing all the African traditional leaders together to discuss issues affecting us, especially how can they get our people out of poverty, how we can make our kingdoms self-reliance.
Dala sitikita lolitaba ukuthi singahlangana njani abaholi amakhosi endabuko iAfrika yonkana, ngoba the norm esejwayelekile kujwayele ukuthi inkosi yase South Africa, inkosi yase Zambia, inkosi yase Malawi, kanti selithanga kuphela ngikhulume nje Swati seni ngoba multilingual, then ukuze sivisisane kahle kakhulu. So ukuhlangana kwethu lana ukuthi we are building the new African United State of Africa. So ukuze sikwazi ukuthi sihwebelane, siphilisane ndawonye, silwe nesifo sendlala, sazi nemlando yethu ukuthi ivela kuphi nobukhosi, ngoba ubukhosi yatalana bonke. So ngesikhethu thina ngesindebele sithi imgobha ayilumani, so ngenjani elumanayo ukusho ukuthi amanye amakhosi selathoma ukukobola abanye.
Lomunye lolilunga le-Africa Diaspora, umhlonishwa Dr. Wallace Williams, lowekutalwa eveni lase-Nigeria, uthi yena ubonga kakhulu yona ingwenyama ngekuthi ibanike indlebe nabayicela ukuthi ibe liso kanye nemlomo wabo babaholi bemdzabu ka-African Union.
It's a significant a turning point now that the African indigenous leadership is now working with the AU to bring that sanity back and bring back the map of Africa the way it was prior to the Berlin Conference. We tear that up now. We need to symbolically tear that, burn it, and say enough is enough. Let us bring back the kingdoms and the states. And Eswatini has a role to play because it's the only surviving monarchy, apart from North Africa, where Morocco has a kingdom as well. But what Eswatini has is a model that should be adopted, link it with the model of Captain Traore and the AES to create now a new model, a paradigm shift for the African continent. It's very important that we now speak out, work together to create that unity, that federal system of kingdoms and nations, and forget about countries. Countries is an apparition. These countries were created by enslavers, by colonial invaders and land grabbers. We need to give back our lands to our people. We need to protect our resources. We need our communities to be in charge. And if anyone is coming to do business with us on the continent, if they want to bring technology, they partner with us, the communities. They partner with the government. And they must be part of our strategic policy.
Before ngiqale nje ukukhuluma, si acknowledge ubuhlakani bemakhosi ethu ayidolo. Inkosi Sobhuza wesibili bese ngibuya enkosini Mswati wesithathu ngoba noma iAfrika beyilwe lathi inkululeko ithatha inqubo talamanye amave kodwa ingwenyama omabili lamakhosi lengikhuluma ngawo athi asibuyele kulokwethu sifike esigabeni kenyalo la iAfrika khona iacknowledge ukuthi nalo live leli leliqhuba ngenqubo Afrika. Yebo ke siphindze siyahlonishwa ukuthi netinqubo letikhona lesetikhona nyalo siyatinaka kodwa ke mbamba lomtimba ngilobuve bethu thina beAfrika. We really grateful.
This conference is about bringing all of this back together, and that is bringing the unity under the aegis of African indigenous leadership, Africa Indigenous Governing Council, and the AU. So now part of the intention of standardizing Africa with one economy, one currency, one federal system is already happening in West Africa. The AES is the model that we should be adopting right now to show that we take back our resources, we do not become exporters of resources and importers of the same products that we have outsourced to the slave invaders, the colonial invaders and land grabbers.
Ibongalo kungonya ngitodibana naba baholi benzabuko eAfrika. Sibonge nje le thumiso lebayishoko nalesivako ukuthi kubo bayakufisa lokho lesikwendako la kangwane kangangokuba esinyine nje silungiselela umhlangano nomkhulu walomnyaka lodabo lotawufaka bonke labaholi benzabuko.
But if you have the governance with the chiefs and the leaders and the kings and the royal kings and queens involved, they are making contributions on behalf of their people as an integral part of governance. We need to go back to systems that we had that governed us properly. Ubuntu, community, working together, living together, helping each other. All these other systems that have been adopted and implanted on us by colonial masters, colonial vandals, colonial invaders, does not and has not worked. I have coined the term Africacy. Africacy means Africans doing it for themselves, by themselves. Africans governing themselves, by themselves. All these other systems that were implanted on us, what did they do? They destroyed our own system of governance, our own system of how we governed ourselves, with trust, with integrity. We had systems before these invaders came. They called themselves settlers, but they were land grabbers. They were invaders. They invaded our territories. They destroyed our kingdoms. And they carved up the continent, that has nothing to do with how the natural, contiguous, and geographical way that kingdoms operated.
Lo mhlangano loba unelisasasa lelikhulu wangenelwa ngemalunga alabo labaphila nako kukhubateka ngekungeva etindlebeni labamelwa ngumnumzane Makhosini Makhubu longusihlalo waka-Deaf Association naye waMakhubu uthi kunyenti lakufundzile kuwo ngakuto tekugcinwa kwamasiko imihambo kanye nekugcina kuthula evenikati lase-Afrika.
Ngicela ngikutibongela nje nami kuba kulomhlangano lomcoka and lomkhulu kangaka. Ngifundzile ke timfo letinengi lokuthi singahola kanjani emave ethu sibaholi base-Afrika boshifu netinkosi ngekwehlukahlukana. Nekuthi ke bayabuketa lokuthi ngabe lokuhola kwabo kungiko yini ngoba bayathathisa ukuthi kusukela kadzeni bekwentiwa kanjani. Babonile ukuthi khona lokulahlekile, babuka nekuthi iAfrika livele linemnotfo, linothile kakhulu. Linayo nenhlonipho, linayo nemalungelo abo baphathi bahola amave. Banemandla futhi lamanengi, so timfo bangatilungisa batibuyisele emuva le culture yabo ihlale ingalahleki njengoba iAfrika iyinhle ngayo le culture.
Inkosi yase-Uganda Paul Sande Emolot Etomei Leni wesithathu lophindze abuse empumalanga yelivekati lase-Afrika, Kenya, South Sudan nase-Ethiopia. Uthi bona babaholi bemdzabu base-Afrika bayishayela sihlutfu ingwenyama ngekuthi ihambe etinyathelweni tabo babemkhulu wayo ngakuto tekugcinwa kwamasiko imihambo kanye nekubusa ngako kuthula kuleli. Inkosi Paul Sande Emolot Etomei Leni wesithathu ibusa sive lesehlukahlukene salo livekati lase-Afrika lesibalelwa ku-18 million lokusive sema-Ateken kanzi futhi iphindze ibe ngusihlalo we-African Kingdoms Diaspora Alliance.
There's a lot which is going on. I'm happy that His Majesty again has accepted to host a bigger traditional leaders meeting next year. I think by that, it will really waken up our people so that we focus in building one united Africa. With those very, very many and few words, we'd like to say thank you. We'd like to say long live His Majesty King Mswati, long live Africa, long live all the traditional leaders of Africa. Emuria Goliae Baete.
Lele sikuvako kakhulu kubo kunako lokukhala kokulahleka kwalamasiko bayafisa lokuthi babuyele nabo enzabukweni yase-Afrika netentuthuko ke tikhona ngoba bona bakhuluma ngokuthi iAfrika ibe yinye sisuse nakule ukuthi nangiya kulelinye live ngicale ngiyobika ukuthi ngicela kuya ngala sekulokukhulu ke kulokunye babala ke ukuthi simele silungise indlela yokwakha imali yinye eAfrika yonke sisuke ngala kuna imali yalabelumbi idola sihlanganiswe imali yinye.
Namhlanje ilanga lokugcina lamaphethelo lokuthi esibereka ngalo ukuthi ama-resolutions wethu enzeka la under i-local leadership African Union, because of African Union, you will understand that it's an organization that is leading the whole African continent, that within the diplomatic state as well. So namhlanje ke sizothatha those resolutions as on behalf as well, on the absence and the presence of the other kings that across the continent of Africa, the 54 continent of Africa. So ngoba iningi labantu liyakhala lithi amakhosi yini angasizi. So we says then ukuthi masizokwakha fanele sikhumbule ukuthi sizokwakha within the very same state of the government, ukuthi sisebenzisane ndawonye, hayi ukuthi singamakhosi sidonselele ngoba phela nabantwana benkosi nabo ama-politicians then bangabantwana benkosi bonke leso sikhathi. So there is no division, is to unite and build the better African continent.
Kwase kufika sona sikhathi sekuthi labaholi bemdzabu base-Afrika kuthi basale bethula konke labakuhlelile ngawo lo mphumela walo mhlangano wabo lobo ubanjelwe kuleli pheceleti ema-declarations. Letincomo ema-declarations ethulwa ngumhlonishwa Zolani Mkiva lovela esigungwini sebaholi bemdzabu base-Afrika, i-Africa Indigenous Governing Council. Umhlonishwa Zolani Mkiva uphinze atiwe kakhulu ngekuba yimbongi yesive semaXhosa, uphinze abe ngumabhalane jikelele webaholi bemdzabu eveni lase South Africa, i-Congress of Traditional Leaders of South Africa.
We are going to take you through to the final declaration now, and the declaration reads as follows. We, African traditional leaders representing traditional leaders networks from all 5 regions of Africa and the sixth region, convened under the leadership of the African Indigenous Governing Council and including Kotla, Fatah, Skal, Agda, among others, attending the African Traditional Leaders Forum from the 5th to the 9th of September here in the Kingdom of Eswatini. 1. Commend the AIGC, a Pan-African Assembly of African Royal Leadership representing recognized kingdoms and associations of royalty across Africa and its 6th region, the African diaspora, for providing leadership in the preparation of the African Traditional Leaders Forum in the Kingdom of Eswatini. Number 2, express our royal gratitude to His Majesty King Mswati III for gracious accepting to host us in his kingdom, and His Majesty's government for the wonderful hospitality extended to the leader. 3, thanks the African Union through the African Commission for Human and People's Rights for the wonderful facilitation of this forum under the leadership of Commissioner in charge of the indigenous peoples and minorities in Africa. 4, congratulates the African Union heads of state and government for adopting the December AU theme of the year for 2025 and the AU organs for the advocacy and contribution. Number 6, acknowledges the African Commission on Human Rights and People's Rights for passing resolution ACHRPC/Res.543 of 2022 and ACHPR/Res.616 of 2024, among others, and the effort it is making in championing for Afro-descendants' right to ancestry and for the AU decade for Afro-descendants. Declare, we call upon the African Union Assembly to acknowledge the contribution of African traditional leaders to the theme of the year, who hereby declare, 1, that African royalty played a central role during the pre-colonial wars of resistance against slavery, imperialism, and colonialism. 2, that the African royalty continues to play a linkage role across all regions of Africa and in the wider diaspora, including the survival and adaptation of royal traditions through leaders such as Queen Nanny of Jamaica, King Henry I of Haiti, and the Suriname Maroon royal houses. 3, that despite continued relevance and the role of African royalty leadership in governance, unity, cultural preservation, and spiritual ancestral guidance in post-independence Africa and its diaspora in the 6th region, the misconceptions still exist on the role played by African royalty during the past oppression. 5, that African royalty have been concerned about these misconceptions sowed by former slave masters and colonizers to cause divisions, misunderstandings, and mistrust between Africans and their kindred in the diaspora. 6, that we take this opportunity to clear the air about these misconceptions and to declare to our brothers and sisters that African royalty were not involved in either slavery or colonialism, and instead fought them back until superior forces quashed royal resistance at a very heavy human, cultural, traditional, and spiritual and economic cost. 7, that considering the damage that these misconceptions have caused, African traditional leaders wish to publicly or apologize to its Afro descendants who have been hurt, suffered, or humiliated in any way. Number 8, the post-colonial states cannot prosper without reconnecting to historical foundations and recognizing the place of African royalty, both male and female leadership, and the intertwined role of spiritual traditions in governance. 9, that as the unipolar global order gives way to a multipolar world of sovereign civilization, Africa needs to leverage its distinct identity anchored in its indigenous governance, royalty, and spirituality to take its rightful place in shaping global governance. 10, that the African Indigenous Governing Council provides a credible platform to unite kingships, kingdoms, and royalty associations across the continent. Call for action. We call on the African Union Assembly to consider establishing an AU organ representing African royalty leadership, both kings and queens, alongside recognized spiritual custodians in continental governance. We urge the African Union member states to ensure the full involvement of African royalty leadership in governance at the national level. We call for the official recognition and commemoration of the heroic role African royals, both men and women, together with spiritual leaders, played in resisting European imperialism and colonialism. We invite all recognized African royalty, kings, queens, queen mothers, and spiritual custodians, and associations of royalty across the continent to join the AIGC in advancing this movement for the recognition, unity, and renewed leadership in Africa's governance. Mr. President, convener of the conference, this is the formal submission to conference as the official declaration of this 3-day conference. We so submit together with these wonderful members of the drafting committee to the plenary for the plenary to accept and adopt this declaration. Thank you very much.
Indvuna yelitiko letinkhundla umhlonishwa Sikhumbuzo Dlamini ubonga uyagangadza kusosilo semhlaba ngekuvumela kusekela abaholi bemdzabu base-Afrika ekutheni abe liso nendlebe yabo enhlanganweni i-African Union mayelana netincomo kanye netikhalo leticondzene nabo ukuthi tivakale.
I-conference lena ingcikitsi yayo bekukuthi kutohlelwa liphepha noma ke-declaration le lapho khona imvume emhlaba bacela ukuthi kube ngiyo leta betfula leliphepha ku-AU summit kubaholi bemave ase-Afrika eminyakeni lotako lapho khona bayothi bangale ngafika leliphepha nakukuhle umhlangano webaholi bemave balemukele imvume emhlaba ke icelwe ukuthi kube ngiyo ke vele tavele etfule leliphepha but awusije lamuhla bahambe bayotfula leliphepha kuyo imvume emhlaba kuthiwe kunene naye alibuke bese uyahamba uyawubetfulela kule ngcizelo phepha-ke ngilo ukuthi kokucala kufuneka ukuthi bona buholi bemdzabo buhlonishwe noma-ke bubuyele esigabeni sabo e-Afrika, ngoba sitawukhumbula lo ukuthi besivele siphethe ngabo abaholi bemdzabo base bayafika-ke laba bese sebathatha over bayasicolonize bafike lokuningi le besikwenta bathi akulungi kahle. Sitawukhumbula ukuthi labaningi emave agcina vele asakhambe to that pressure, hhayi ngoba bekumnanzi ngoba bebabulawa basuswa badisplace endzabeni tabo, kuningi kakhulu lokwenteka. But siyabonga-ke lokuthi labaningi baholi bemdzabo emakhosi indlovukati ama-queens lebekakhona bakhona labaningi kulwa bafika ezingeni lapho khona agcina le ndzawo tethu tingakahambi. Nyalo-ke sekufika isikhathi lapho khona i-Afrika yonke seyibonile ukuthi kufuna sibuyele timphadzeni tethu. Kuyasijabulisa-ke lokuthi isehlangene e-Afrika ikhanze ukuthi livela kangwane ngilona lingahamba embili lendzaba leti, ngoba lisebugcinile lobungilo balo lokuphatha komdzabo kusekhona kithi kangwane. Tawukhumbula lokuthi kunenkosi evenda kangwane, kunendlovukazi bese kuba netikhulu babetikhulu nebantu abenkosi abaphethe imango. Lethine vele sikhungelwe lapho ema-disputes ethu siwa-resolve noma-ke siwacatulula kusukela phasi emangweni lapho khona sikhulu sinemabandla senta ngamabandla, kuhambe kuye khona even lapho imvumo yemhlaba nayo isenta ngamabandla. Losho ukuthi nje indzaba ye-dialogue indzaba vele even nakangwane lehamba embili, ngoba wonke umuntu uthola ithuba lekukhuluma ngendlela afisa ngayo. Kuyasijabulisa-ke lokuthi umhlangano sofika ekugcineni lamuhla so uyavalwa sibatawumisana liphephe ngonyameni letawufike bethuleka e-EU lokuthi akubuyelwe emdzabeni, baholi bemdzabo babe yingcenye yokuphathwa noma-ke yekuphathwa kwemave, nabo bekho babe nelivi bohulumende bakuhloniphe ukuthi kunebuholi bemdzabo, ngoba ngibona buyi-solution.
Asiliphethe lapho-ke mbukeli ihlelo Sive Siyatfutfuka sesibavile baholi bemdzabo base-Afrika ukuthi bazuze kanjani kulo mhlangano lomkhulu kangaka. Sayiva futhi kanye nayo indvuna ibajabulela kakhulu ukuthi bangenele lo mhlangano. Asihlangane evikini lelilandzelako mbukeli bawubukela Sive Siyatfutfuka kuso sibuko semaswati Eswatini TV. Lokuvalelisako nguye nokwazi Phumelele wakwaDlamini. Usale kahle.
The program you've been watching was proudly brought to you by Micro Projects, a unit under the Ministry of Economic Planning and Development, in conjunction with the Ministry of Tinkhundla and Administration.